What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast, and of course, our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host, Jason McMaster, and you're going to have to excuse me if I feel a little giddy today. I'm a little giddy, man. We have Bryan Small from the Hangmen on the show today, and Bryan is one of my heroes, and he was kind enough to do the podcast. Great, interesting dude. If you don't know the Hangmen, they've been around since the late 80s, and they kind of came up in the LA area, but they weren't part of the whole hair metal scene. They were a grittier band, a little more seedy, a little dirtier, a little twangy, almost a cowpunk garage rock kind of band.
It's safe to say that they were never going to bleed over really into what was happening down the street, you know?
Yeah. You know, we've had some guys from Junkyard on this podcast, and there's a lot of similarities, I think, between Junkyard and the Hangmen in the sense that they had a little twang in their music, and they weren't concerned necessarily about image, which was all the rage back in the day when these bands were coming up. So again, and Bryan has a very interesting vocal delivery too. He's very he sounds like Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Tom Petty, these guys that have sort of a nasally sort of element to their vocals, which adds to the music, in my opinion. It makes the pain more painful, and it makes the celebration more joyful. And I've been a big fan of the Hangmen for a number of years now, and just really
That's called
excited to have him on
tone,
the show.
Dave.
Yeah,
It's called
yeah.
tone.
Well, he's
singing with tone, and he's singing from the heart, and he's. I think that after talking to him and hearing what his true influences are from just early days growing up, and what he was and why he was attracted to the music he was attracted to, he's still attracted to. There was no trend ever. It was just this thing that he heard that he's a real deal.
Yeah.
I look at Hangman's music as kind of like if you like the odd sort of country Rolling Stones song that's not popular, the deep cut.
Yeah, deep cut.
What I mean? If you like like old punk rock, but like dirty rock and roll that's sleazy, but it's got some twang to it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily because the Hangmen they're a rock and roll band.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But there's this whole other thing going on. Even when they're rocking their most rockin' tune, there's still something else going on.
Yeah, there's an element of what people commonly refer to as roots rock. And it's that sort of rock that does have an element of twang, and it's just real genuine and street level, and it's not showy and it's not flashy. And therefore the emotions come across as much more genuine. And I've just loved them from the first time I've heard them. I think I've collected all their records at this point, and I think Bryan is a genius songwriter. He's great with lyrics. And he's a great personality.
They're more about lyrics and not just making you want to dance. It's not about that at all. It's the same way that the most heartfelt old school Aerosmith or Bob Dylan song, or even Rolling Stone song, or country songs that broken hearted, a little bent, emotional value. The lyrics have in Hangman material.
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
This has been a highly enjoyable episode for me because I'm learning things about the Hangmen that I didn't necessarily know. The times that Bryan and I have been in the same room, we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
But that has happened a few times.
Yeah.
And it's cool to connect and kind of hear where his spirit is kind of coming from when he writes a song, when he speaks to you through his music. And that's awesome. That was awesome. So Dave,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being such a fanboy of the Hangmen and wanting them to come on. You know, the cool thing is I've gotten to hang with, and you as well, with Jimmy from the Hangmen, who's been working with the Hangmen for quite a while now,
Time.
who is in Junkyard.
Hey, you know what? Bryan knew Jimmy before Jimmy had a mustache. That's how long Bryan's known Jimmy.
That sounds like lyrics. Bryan knew Jimmy before Jimmy had a mustache. You heard that first here on the Talk Louder podcast.
And if you've seen Jimmy's mustache, you know that's a long time.
That's
man.
some serious mustache.
That's
that's like Billy Gibbons shaving the middle part.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And just letting the outer rim hang all the way down.
Yeah, and we love Jimmy James, and it was great for
awesome.
It was great to hear Bryan tell us a little bit about their partnership through all these years, because they've done some great music together.
Yeah. So I think that, the goal here, Talk Louder people, is to check out some Hangmen, but check out this episode first here on the Talk Louder podcast. There he is.
Right on.
There he is.
Hi, guys.
There
Hey,
you
man.
are.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Dude, please, thanks for joining us.
Got
Let me
the
see if this is-
industrial look. Awesome.
There we go.
Well, I'm in my basement,
Yeah, that's where rock and roll lives.
away from the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We live in Texas. We don't have basements because the ground's too hard to dig a basement.
Well, I lived in California so long, I forgot what a basement was.
Right.
I just moved back. I
You
just
joining
moved
us?
back to Montana.
Ah, okay.
That's where I'm living now. Yeah.
There's basements in Texas. About every other house in where I live, there's basements.
Oh, you have
But
basements?
but
out
you're
there?
you're
Lucky.
not that. You're only half wrong, Dave.
Okay.
It's semi rare that we have basements.
Yeah.
California, no basements.
No,
No basements.
no, because you you get down and past about 2 or 3 feet. There's a fucking earthquake waiting for you. Hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, Bryan, I just been listening to the record from 2014. I'm sorry, I already forgot the fucking name of it.
Me too.
Yeah, it's dude. I really Dave popped in and he caught me listening to it.
Yeah. 2014 would be
East of Western.
Yeah, that's right.
East of Western.
And
yeah.
man,
Yeah.
it's like I was trying to tell Dave, just as you were coming in, what it's rock and roll, but what kind of fucking rock and roll is that? Because it's so many. It's a bastard. It's so many things. It's so many fucking things.
That's the beauty of it.
Jason, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
You
You're
know,
welcome. And
I really do.
I'm not even fishing for that. I'm just trying to, I guess it's a question. I don't know. I'm loving it. And I can't really, I recently started writing country songs over the lockdown. And being a Texan, that's kind of in my blood. And
Sure.
and where you're coming from and where I'm coming from probably meets in the middle from some kind of stuff. I mean, my dad wore cowboy boots and there was always Johnny Cash and shit laying around, so whatever. And then, to rebel, I was like, it's Kiss. Fuck you, Johnny Cash. I'm listening to Gene Simmons, but then you always go back to your Elton John and your Willie Nelson and stuff like that. And it influences your writing because, Queen and Elton and Bowie and Alice Cooper and all that dramatic shit that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Elton John was half country half the time anyway, when you kind of think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So where are your influences coming from when you pick up when you're inspired, where are you kind of maybe borrowing from?
I think a lot of it is being so musically naive.
Wow.
And not knowing necessarily what I'm supposed to be playing as far as chords go on a guitar. I learned the basic bar chords, and from then I've not wanted to learn anything more. So that's where it starts from, is the simplicity of not knowing that you're not supposed to do this or that, you know. And also I just there was a band called Gun Club from Los Angeles that really kind of drove me towards this cowpunk, darker imagery-ish kind of rock and roll.
Yeah.
That was very cowpunky then. We were very cowpunk when we first started, but we've straightened it out. You know, we're a rock and roll band. We've always been a rock and roll band.
Sure you have. Of course you have.
But yeah, I don't know if that helps you at all. But
no, it totally does. Let me, I'm sorry, Dave, I want you to go, but the first thing that you said, I fucking love it, because I once asked my kick-ass shredder guitar player in one of my bands to give me guitar lesson. Mm-hmm. And he sat there. It was Paul, by the way, Dave. You're going, I wonder which one he's talking about. It's Paul. and I'm like, hey, Paul, you know, we're jamming a little bit, writing some shit. Give me a guitar lesson, you know, show me some shit. And he sat there and he thought about it for a second. He said, no. And I said, I laughed at him. I was like, why? I was like, why wouldn't? Because it will change. And he didn't even blink. He said, because it will change the way that you write songs. Because I write on guitar.
Absolutely.
That is the best thing I've ever heard, is that, like, I don't want to learn how to play guitar, but I'm the guitar player.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because it's, that's your magic. It's like, feeling. Just like roll me around in some dirt and then I'm going to be able to write you a song. Like, don't think about anything other than what you know already.
Yeah.
And keep it, naivete.
Yeah. Well, luckily I've got I've had really great guitar players to do what they do over the songs, you know, like Jimmy James and Rontrose Heathman played with us on the album that you were listening to. Mm-hmm. And our original guitar player, Billy, and the list goes on of different people, mainly Jimmy for mostly, you know, past 20 plus years, you know, so yeah, he is such a simple, soulful, I don't really know where I'm going type player, that it just works really, really great with what we do. I think, you know, he plays what I want to hear, you know. And says a lot in a few notes.
Oh yeah. Do you think that he's also following you a little bit? I
think him and I have been playing together for so long, and he's been in the trenches with me and kind of pulled me out of really dark places and vice versa. And we've become such good friends and continue to trudge the road together, the rock and roll road together, that there's a trust and kind of an unspoken way that we, you know, play off each other, you know. But I'm very opinionated in the way I think a song should sound.
So I'm not insisting that that Jimmy's following you, but if you show up with the lyric or the hook or call it whatever you want, the basically the stick man, he knows automatically. I guess this is a sort, imagine this be a question, please. You show up with the drawing of the stick man, and it's your fucking stick man, and Jimmy knows what clothes the stick man is supposed to be wearing with what he's doing in the photograph.
Most of the time, yeah.
Okay.
And some of the time, our dynamic is Jimmy knows that I'm going to hammer him until he plays the greatest that he can play. You know, because he's so good. He can just like whip out little things, and I go, Jimmy, you're better than that. You're way better than that. And he goes, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I go, dude, let's keep what you did there. That was brilliant, but I didn't even mean to do that. Yeah, that's right. You know,
Right.
that's you not thinking, you know?
Well, someone needs to write a book on, hey, what was that? Which is something that, the singer says to the guitar player who's warming up. They're not even writing anything. Oh, stop. What was that? What was what? 5 minutes ago, you played this fucking thing and it's gone. So
many great songs born out of what was that?
Oh, no kidding.
I can't. What are you talking
No kidding. No, I'm not trying to paint it like I do. Like this is our dynamic all the time. Jimmy, 90% of the time comes up with just killer shit, but when we're struggling, we will hash it out,
Yeah.
and it's with love, man, because I love the guy so much, and I just know he's great. I want people to know he's great.
Well, he is. He is.
Yeah.
And,
big fans here.
Yeah. So
good.
It's kind of, I guess the word is funny. It's kind of funny that in you guys' relationship, like any kind of relationship, he doesn't really know what he's walking into. He doesn't know when he's going to be in the pressure cooker. Most of the time he might be, oh yeah, cool, writing some songs, cool. But then, sometimes you're like, dude.
Yeah, he calls it the look.
I've
heard that I have that look.
Every relationship has the look.
Yeah,
whether it's bandmates or spouses or whatever.
So, so that's what I was saying. We've been through so much for so many years that he knows the look, and I know the look from him too.
Yeah.
Like, of course.
So we all get it.
I love that. Thank you for, I just wanted to dig right in because I was wrapping my head around that record,
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
So Bryan, you mentioned the Gun Club, and I wanted to, maybe start with something current and then go back through your history and maybe use your discography as some milestones for my own benefit. But let's start in the present. You guys just put out, is it an EP that covers is it Thunderhead, the Gun Club song?
Yeah, that's a song that we did with Rob Younger when we were on Geffen, on the ill-fated Geffen record.
Okay.
And one of the only tracks that I thought was worthy of coming out, I just didn't think the Hangmen at that time, we weren't focused whatsoever.
Yeah.
And anyways, we decided to, sneak something out from that album that was shelved. And, so it was just a track that was good from that record that we thought would.
It also has, I don't know if you call it the flip side, but the other song that's part of this release is the studio version of She Walks. And
Oh yeah.
And
I forgot.
It's a good thing I'm here.
Yeah. No, I forgot that.
So my question is, you have it on the live album and you've obviously played it before. But if that's a studio version of that song, was that song also part of the Geffen record that
it was? It was.
Okay. So there you have, there's the news on that. So my second question related to all this is, I know you're a big Gun Club fan, and I was surprised that you did that song because if I'm not mistaken, your favorite album by them is Fire of Love.
Sure.
And it's not on that album. So what drove you to Thunderhead versus a song off of maybe Fire of Love as a cover tune?
At that time, I think I was really getting into that record, Mother Juno, that Thunderhead was on, you know. And, you know, it's hard, Dave, because those were the druggiest of druggy days. And I don't really know what I was thinking. I just knew that we had to, you know, that I loved the Gun Club, and that'd be a good one for us to do. And I don't know. That's about it. There wasn't really much thought behind it.
I went back and listened to it. I dug it up to find it, and I listened to it, and I thought, well, no wonder they chose this. It sounds like it's easily could be adapted into a Hangmen song, you know?
Well, that's that there too. I heard us in that song, you know, rather than me trying to harken back to Fire of Love era Gun Club and, you know, because those were very cowpunky type songs, and we weren't really doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. So much. So I don't know.
So you've got that out as sort of a new release. And then I think I saw somewhere that you've got an album, and I think the title was an album in the works with a working title called Debauchery in the Mortuary or something like that. Is that you?
That's
a different Hangman. Okay.
That's the unevil Hangman from England.
Okay. Jason can relate to this because Jason has a band called Broken Teeth, and there's another Broken Teeth out of England. And
oh shit.
Yeah. So sometimes
so our Broken Teeth has been around since 1999. Plenty of time for them to do a Google search when they come. Hey, we need to name our fucking band here in Manchester. Let's call it Broken Teeth. And they just Google's going, you know, you can type in Broken Teeth and see if there's another band using the fucking name in America now just to save some face later on. Though they didn't. And that would have been about 2004 or something like that they started in Manchester. And they're a great band. They're like a hardcore band, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
It's so just not to be just confusing when people are like looking around trying to see what's going on, you know.
That's been such a thorn in my side for such a long time. I can
relate. You're not alone. You're not alone.
You know.
So let's go back. You're joining us today from Montana, and I've got my facts straight. You were born in Montana, grew up in Boise, Idaho, and then eventually headed out to LA. So what was the driving factor that sent you to LA? What scene were you trying to attach to, or what was the motivation? What were you looking for?
The motivation was X, the band.
Yeah.
Gun Club, the band. And there was Tex and the Horseheads.
Yeah.
And these bands I loved, you know, and I was going, I want to go where they're at, you know, I want to be part of whatever that is, you know, and I don't know what it was. It was punk rock, but it was, you know, country-ish. It was debaucherous, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And, you know, so I did it.
How old were you when you headed out there?
I think I got here when I was late 20.
Okay. So you get out to LA in your late 20s, and you're looking around for kindred.
No. I was 20 something. I was like early 20s. Not late 20s.
If not 20 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. Young 20s. Young 20s, searching for kindred spirits musically. You get out there, you put the Hangmen together, and one of the first guys you met in pretty short order, I think, was Keith Morris. From people know him best from the Circle Jerks, but he sang for Black Flag and more recently for the band Off. Is my timeline right? Did you bump into him pretty quickly?
Fairly quick. Yeah. I think we were together maybe a year and a half, 2 years before we played a party downtown, and Keith was there, and, you know, seemed to like us a lot. And, you know, we started hanging out, and he wound up managing us, you know.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, and producing your first album? No, I'm sorry. That was Vic.
Vic Nail. Yeah.
Vic Nail, who did Motorhead's Ace of Spades.
Yeah. What a sweet guy that guy was.
So tell me about that, because your debut album comes out on Capitol Records, major label. That looks like a good start. You've got Vic Nail as a producer. That sounds promising. But
Sure does.
It all went to hell. What happened?
God.
I didn't even have to say anything.
Yeah, you've heard this story.
People need to be watching this to get what just fucking happened. Dave says something, Bryan sniffs and it was like, oh, dude, you were squirming right there, dude.
I think I just
well, you know that story, Jason.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, so many of us have been through this thing that I akin to, not to belittle, not to minimize child abuse, but it was child abuse in a way, in a sense.
I get that.
Where they're the parents and you have no guidance.
Yeah.
And they're going, do you want a tour bus? And we go, sure. You know?
Yeah.
We don't know that at the end of the tour, you have to pay back thousands of dollars for this tour bus.
Right.
You know, and all these things. There was, you know, it was just like everybody said they cared, but nobody really cared.
Right.
No.
You know,
It's business.
No. Yeah.
Someone else with deeper pockets is talking to someone else who supposedly is your friend, and they're coming up with a budget that they think, for whatever reason, you can pay back at the end of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, you know, it was quite an experience. We didn't have the confidence, I guess, at that point to say what we wanted or didn't want. We didn't, because we were thrown into this thing that was way bigger than us. And we got to just kind of say, go with the flow. And, you know, very unrock and roll and completely unlike us.
Was this your years at Capitol Records? Is this what
it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, we made decisions. We didn't make them. They were made for us, but we didn't protest enough, you know. Right. And we came out with an album that didn't sound like us, you know, and it chewed us up and spat us out, and we were cooked.
Very similar to so many stories, but Jared, our producer of this show, who was in that band Pariah that was on Geffen, and their record came out a little late, you know, but you know, by the time their record came out, they had moved. The style was. They had changed as a band, and there, you know, whoever was developing them didn't let them change. They wanted them to like hurry up and get through the window of what was happening and not what the band was really trying to say with their songs. Yeah. And so he could relate to this story like as squirmy as you were a minute ago. So
yeah. I mean, there were some cool things that happened. Sure. You know, the girl that signed us, Rachel Matthews, is still a friend, you know, and I love her. And, you know, but we were all, none of us were ready to make any good decisions for ourselves at that point. But
a lot of your fans, though, point to that record as a classic, and some people even say you'll probably disagree because you're in the eye of the storm and you're too close to the material. But a lot of your fans hold that up as maybe your best record. And I know that, you know, some of the grit got polished off of it and it got turned into something that didn't fully represent you. But there's great songs on that record.
Well, there's not a song that I don't stand behind on that record. Yeah. You know, we put most of them in and out of the set list, you know, to this day. Yeah. And it's not, you know, and you know, I think they still hold up.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm very proud of those songs.
So would that record ever be re-released? Because the other thing that people say
I
is,
hope
I love
not.
that record, but I can't find it. You don't want it
Good.
re-released.
No. If they want to know what those songs are supposed to sound like, they're on the live record.
Yes, they are.
We've Got Blood on the Toes of Our Boots. That has every song on that record.
Makes so much sense to me.
And that record, by the way, we often have discussions on this show about great live albums. And of course, you get all the standard answers, and there's a reason for that because those albums are classic. But people in our audience point to Kiss Alive, they point to Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy, they point to Lights Out by UFO, If You Want Blood by AC/DC. I've always thrown.
You mean Strangers in the Night, not Lights
I'm sorry,
Out.
Strangers in the Night. Yeah,
you're good.
But I've always thrown We've Got Blood on the Toes of Our Boots into that mix because to me, that record is, you feel like you're in a smoky bar room listening to a band sweat it out when you're listening to that record. And that's magic. You know, you can't really capture that. It's really hard to capture. And I think it's captured on that record. And that's why I point to it as a great live album.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Yeah, that was just, you know, pure luck that it sounds as good as it sounds, and we were winging it, and but it came off good, and we got lucky, you know. But I'm glad those songs are presented as they should be.
Yes,
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the whole point of that record. You know, is trying to set the sonic record of the Hangmen straight.
Yeah,
you know.
Well,
as much as I loved working with Vic Nail, that was great. But they went and took all of his mixes and redid them over a weekend, and that's the Hangmen album that you hear. You know, it's not what we thought it was going to be. You know, we were bummed, and Vic was bummed. You know, it was a backhanded deal.
Yeah,
you know, but that was business.
That was Capitol Records, and it turned out to not be a great experience. But and so you're in LA, and you're kind of coming up in I'm going to say this very carefully. You're coming up in the era of cock rock and hair metal, but you're not in the cock rock and hair metal scene. You guys are more in the scene of Gun Club, Tex and the Horseheads, Junkyard, the Four Horsemen, bands a little more like that, sort of gritty. There's some twang in the metal, you know, that sort of thing. So my question is, was there ever, because obviously Capitol Records didn't know what to do with you, was there ever a point where you got booked on some crazy bill with a bunch of hair bands that made no sense because you were in the middle of that city at that time? Did you ever do a gig with like Warrant or anything like that?
No.
So your promoters had their, you know, ear to the ground.
Well, yeah. You know, it was us promoting us booking us, you know, or Keith was booking us, and he knew what was up, and he wanted the best for us. So, you know,
right.
So he got us some great shows, you know, I think he was involved in getting us with the Gun Club and Ramones, and, you know, and a couple, one or two Circle Jerk shows, you know, which could have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah,
you know,
I
bet
that.
Yeah, but it's the same, like, you know, I mean, I'll just say Warrant because Dave brought up Warrant. That something like that could have gone a little awry as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because it's like, if you're in the middle of that city during that time and you're on a major label, I could see, you know, somebody that's not tuned in saying, "Hey, we'll just pair you guys up with Poison or Warrant," and not knocking those bands, but the two are nothing alike. You know what I'm saying?
I think that I feel like I'm talking smack about rock fans when I say, you know, it depends on what that room's expectations are going to be on their way to the show up until the moment they order a drink. What their expectations are of whoever they're there to see, and then whoever they see before they're there or after whoever they're there to see, their expectations might surprise them as well as you or me or whoever it is that's the odd man out, right?
Right.
Surely some of the Circle Jerks, fans are like totally down, heard it and were like, whoa, this is rad. Or it had to have happened to some extent. And who's to say it would not ever happen in front of one of those a little more sweeter tasting band, something that's a little, you guys are more on the bitter side and they might be a little more, somebody's wearing polka dots.
Yeah, well, I just asked the question because it seems like they're if you're in the middle of Los Angeles in the late '80s and you're a rock and roll band, there's a very good chance you might end up on a bill with Rat or Warrant or something when you're a band like the Hangmen or Tex and the Horseheads. And if so, then I want to know what was that experience like?
No, our stomping grounds were clubs like Raji's and the Anti Club, and those are places where you could see a Jane's Addiction and a Tool, young Tool, young Jane's Addiction, and then then the rock and roll of us or Junkyard or and L7. We were all doing these shows together. It wasn't like the Sunset Strip. The way it seemed to me back in the day was they were all the same type band. Always, it was always the same type band playing with the same type band. And in Hollywood, the areas that we were playing, it was a mixed bag, more of a mixed bag.
What about
and more interesting to me?
Yeah.
What about this is just because I'm a fan. What about back then? It would have been early '90s show with Rhino Bucket. You ever do any shows with Rhino Bucket?
I was aware of them.
Okay.
And we very well could have done a show with them, but I don't recall.
Right. Yeah. What about Coconut Teaser?
Yeah.
You were in there? Were you in there a couple times?
We played there a few times.
Yeah.
I was in. Yeah. We lived, Billy and I and Keith lived about less than a block from the Coconut Teaser.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So that was an easy, cheap drunk, good time night.
Did you ever see
within walking distance?
What did you ever see an early Van Halen show at the Teaser?
No, that was 70s.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. You're right.
I didn't even know the Teaser was around in the 70s, of course.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I thought that's where Van Halen played some of their early shows, but I know they played elsewhere.
They played Gazaris.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where they were all the time. They were at what is it, the Starwood and the Gazaris and shit like that. And
Starwood.
It would do shit out in Pasadena somewhere too.
Yeah, because that's where they lived.
Yeah.
And David Lee Roth, he had a club that all the punk rockers and rock and rollers would hang out after all the bars closed, called the Zero. And you'd see him hanging out. He loved that scene. He loved the punk rockers. There
is a book. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
There is a coffee table book of LA punk world.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, it might even just be like LA rock thing. It's it's probably out of print because it's fairly old. And there is I wish I could recall, but my brain cells, the photos in there, there's a ton of like black and white photos, and David Lee Roth is hanging out with the Dead Boys, and he's this total underground group that like people who like Sammy Hagar, Van Halen, and Jump know nothing about. And there's all of these people that I'm recognizing going, holy shit, a picture of Roth and that dude, you know. And there's more than one in this book that's, like I said, just an array of that whole thing. So
did you ever meet Roth at one of these parties?
No, I didn't. But I did unfortunately meet Gene Simmons.
Oh, tell us about that.
Did you say unfortunately?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no.
Well,
I'm sorry you were a victim.
There was a turning point in our scene in Raji's, and that's when Guns N' Roses was coming into it. And they were up on the Strip playing their shows, you know, and Troubadour and the Whiskey and whatnot. And I think they came down to Raji's because they heard it was a cool place to play. Well, that was a big deal. And I was there, of course, because that's where I lived, at Raji's, you know, for years. And I saw Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley in the audience, and I'm going, this is the end.
Man.
This is the end of this club. You know, it's over.
Yeah.
And in my mind, you know, because I was so protective of what I thought was, which is a selfish way to think, but
that's fine, though.
This is our place and this is our scene. And now here's Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like, fuck, you know, but then later on, I met him. He called me Axl Rose. He goes, what's up, Axl? You know, trying to be a dick.
Oh, okay. Because,
you know?
Just because you were there.
Because I was a rock and roll guy, and you know, whatever. But anyways, this story isn't as good as the buildup, but you know.
No, but I can appreciate what you're saying, because I think we've all been in that situation to one degree or another, where we can tell the outside is creeping into our precious scene, and we don't want it to change. Yeah. Whether you, like you guys, you're musicians, so whether it's another band creeping onto the radar, or in my case, like you're describing, my favorite dive bar is all of a sudden starting to get gentrified and people are starting to find out about it. There's this little bit of ownership in your heart where you're like, oh, man, you guys aren't welcome here. So I can relate.
Interesting. It's interesting how, you know, your favorite band no one knows about, and then a year later you don't like them anymore because everybody else likes them.
That's a weird.
That's kind of like how I feel about Austin, Texas.
Yeah,
it's this incredible hotbed, and it's something in the water. And I mean, I feel like I wasn't even born till I got here. That would have meant I was born 16-year-old, and you know, anyway, you get it. And then, you know, here I am 1 million years later, and I still love Austin, but I can't live there because it's so smarmy and sticky with a trend and whatever it is. I can't. I'll be over here remembering the old days, licking my wounds. My scars that I have I'm so happy to have them when that was cool and I was happy.
Well, the character
I can relate.
Rubbed away, you know, that's I think we've all seen that happen to some degree or another.
It just felt like the authenticity of it started waning. Yeah. You know, but you know, again, that's just my perspective of it.
No, that's valid.
No, it's we all have that.
Yeah.
You know.
So tell us about the Geffen years, because, you know, a lot of your stuff is documented. I want to talk a little bit about the stuff that's kind of undocumented so people are aware. You left Capitol Records and ended up on Geffen.
Yeah, we didn't leave. We got...
Okay. You got...
uninvited back.
Uninvited. Okay, so you got uninvited from Capitol, and you ended up at Geffen. And at the time... Geffen, of course, obviously a big money label, but they did have a little sort of area on their roster where they had some, some kind of gritty bands. I mean, Guns N' Roses, Jason mentioned Pariah earlier, Junkyard was on Geffen. So it seemed, and then Nirvana, it seemed like it might not have been a bad fit for you guys. But you recorded an album, it never saw the light of day. So in a nutshell, tell me about the Geffen experience.
Well, unfortunately, after we got dropped by Capitol and went through that whole rigmarole with them, the Hangmen as it was, nobody was really into it anymore. We just felt like, done.
The band or the audience?
The band did.
Okay, gotcha.
For the most part.
Right.
And drugs came into the thing, and this decisions that I was making, and I didn't really have a band, and I got a call in my apartment from Tom Zutaut out of the blue, saying, "What are you doing?" And I didn't know who Tom was, and I go, "Well, we just got dropped by Capitol."
What year was this?
This must have been 91, maybe.
Okay.
90, 91.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, I want you to do a record for Geffen. And I was, I didn't really have a band. He goes, you can do whatever you want. You put together another version of the Hangmen or do a solo record, whatever you wanted to do. So that's what I did. I got together with more like-minded. And at that point, like-minded meant we liked the same kind of drugs. So we had the musical thing, similarities, but we were all going to become heroin addicts together and go to Geffen Records. And, it was, I was at my worst for sure. And Geffen hung in there as long as they could with us, but they had so much trouble at that label with drugs and bands. And they were just like, after we did the record and we mixed it and all this stuff, and I would show up to meetings, just like, incoherent. And they're just like, fuck this. Fuck you guys. And I was like, cool. To me at that point, I didn't care anymore about the band or about being on a label or anything. So, it was a relief for me because I had the band at that point down my throat going, get your shit together, get your shit together. And I was just like, no, I don't want to, it got that bad. So,
can I ask a personal question?
Sure.
I feel like I'm talking to a person who's in a much, much better place right now.
25 years sober.
Would you agree?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. No. I can
let me give you a big hug.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So that was, there's many stories that go along with that mess. We went to Nashville to record the record with Rob Younger from the Radio Birdmen, who we loved.
Yeah.
We could have made a great record.
Right.
We could have. We blew it, Yeah. We weren't focused. We were looking for drugs every night. We couldn't find drugs. So we drink ourselves, so we wouldn't be sick. And we blew it,
So that album, I think I saw somewhere that the album was tentatively called Suicide Doors.
It was, yeah.
Okay. And I thought I read somewhere that some of that material surfaced later on. Is that accurate? Okay.
The cream of that crop went to Metallic IOU, which came out after I got sober.
Right. Okay. Okay. So my next question would be, was going to be, is there anything worth salvaging from that session, or do you feel like you saved the best stuff and the rest of it you're happy that it's gone?
The only things left, only meat left on that bone, as far as I was concerned, was Thunderhead and She Walks.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so those songs and then a lot of the songs that were on Metallic IOU, you know,
right.
Downtown.
Great song.
Shoot.
Love that song. That's my second favorite. You're going right down my list of favorites.
So those were recorded with Rob Younger producing. We were all under the gun of Geffen. He was terrified because he'd never done a record that had money behind it.
Yeah.
And we were just unruly, you know, self-centered drug addicts.
Yeah.
You know, what a nightmare for him. You know,
yeah,
he's got the label calling him every day. How they doing? What's going on? You know, and he can't even keep us from poor guy
hearing. Yeah.
You know, and just,
so there's an 11-year gap between your debut album and Metallic IOU, right?
I guess.
Yeah. So that's 10 plus. 10 plus years, 10 plus years of you guys just kind of lost in a haze. And as you mentioned, struggling with your demons or whatnot.
Yeah.
You pull it together in time for Metallic IOU.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. I saw your post on Facebook recently. You're 25 years clean and sober. That's amazing.
Yep.
Thank you.
What was the impetus at that time back around Metallic IOU where you said, I got to get clean, man? What bulb went off in your head that made you turn it around?
There was a moment of clarity, as they call it, and that's a great way to put it. I saw my life clearly. If I was going to knock on my drug dealer's door one more time, the way it would go, how that was going to end up.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
And even though I had tried for years and years and years and years to get sober and gone to rehabs and AA meetings and all that stuff, you know, maybe it had a cumulative effect on me somehow, but you know, it was just that day that I turned around and went back to my car and drove away. And then, you know, it was a moment of clarity, you know, and like, this is not what I want my life to be, you know, and it'd been like that for, you know, 8 years, like solid of, you know, and just losing shit left and right. If we ever had a gig back in those days, we were borrowing from everyone just to have a guitar to play. None of us had any gear, you know?
Man.
So it was, you know, and it's not that different from a lot of other situations with bands, you know, it was a bummer. And, you know, I was one of the lucky ones that lived through it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel very fortunate, you know. I'm a slow learner, you know, but I got it when I got it, and I've managed to hang on to it, you know.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. So
good for you. And I think, you know, it shows also in your discography, because after that record, you kind of hit a stride where you were banging out records every 2 or 3 years. This is after a debut and an 11-year gap before album number 2. You finally get it together on album number 2, and then you're cranking them out pretty good.
Well, you're being generous, Dave.
Well,
it's about 5 years between records, but we do records when we're ready to do them. You know,
as you should anyway. There's no deadline when you're on your own.
Yeah.
And after those early years, you kind of figured it out. It's like, oh, these guys are assholes. I need to be on my own.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
much.
Yeah.
my point being that you were obviously suddenly very prolific. So was it because
Much more so.
you had
Yeah.
a lot to say, or was there a lot of leftover stuff sort of backlogged? I'm guessing it's not the latter, because it sounds like you were a mess and there probably wasn't a lot,
Mm-mm.
tucked away in the closet. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you might have found your creative muse again at that
Yeah.
point.
I think I was so stunted by my addictions and whatever, that when I discovered being in a band and rock and roll again, I had that fire that I had when I was 20. It's back. So, and that's kind of pretty much propelled me, because I love being in a band. I love playing live. I love recording. I love trying to make up songs,
Yeah.
I love that whole thing.
Did you and Jason ever cross paths? Because you guys both had a debut album that came out in '89, so you're both kind of making your mark around the same time in the rock and roll spectrum.
If I may, I saw like ads and things for that first Hangmen record pretty much everywhere I was going. A lot of magazines or whatever, and just like wherever I was. And I swear I saw you guys somewhere, and I can't remember where, because I know it wasn't, and we've already confirmed that it wouldn't have been on, down in Hollywood on Sunset. It would have been somewhere else, but I just can't. Did you guys ever play the Valley?
We've played it out in the Valley, out in California, in Los Angeles. Yeah, we played at the Country Club once with the Replacements.
Oh, okay.
But that's the only time I saw you, Jason, at Universal Amphitheater.
Oh, with the Cult.
With the Cult.
With the Cult. Yeah.
And Rick Rubin was standing next to me.
Far out.
And Rick wanted to sign the Hangmen before Capitol.
Wow.
But he wanted to change the band. He's going, I can get better players for you.
Wow.
And Keith Morris was managing us at the time. And he goes, yeah, Rick really likes everything, but he wants to, get better guitar player and a better drummer and Keith and I both knew that wasn't going to happen.
Right. I feel like he did that with the Four Horsemen. I think he kind of built that band.
Right. Yeah.
I
saw you there.
We had a great time on that tour with the Cult.
That's awesome. I love the Cult. And I remembered liking you guys too, and I didn't know that much about you.
Yeah. I was shocked that Ian and Billy they saw, I just imagined they were, he was in Canada or something, Billy was in England or something, and they're going, well, who do we want to get? Oh, well, and they see our video, because I heard they told us they saw our video, and they were like, oh, they're like what did he say? They're like a sort of like a New York Dolls-ish thing, but they're from Texas. They're boogie. It's this boogie thing, and they're trashy, and they're
right on.
And it wasn't exactly what was going on in Hollywood either.
Right. Yeah.
But in that it's easy to say that that's not really. And honestly, if I were to listen to your first record, after hearing you say that's not what we're supposed to sound like, I'm with the rest of the sheep, not knowing that you feel that way.
Right. But did you feel that way about your first record on a major label?
No.
Didn't you? Oh, okay, good.
I feel like
you're so lucky.
Well, it happened so fast for us, because I was in this thrash band for like a decade, and then all of a sudden I'm moonlighting, doing some kind of boogie glam thing, cover songs and shit. And we did AC/DC and Zeppelin, but we also covered what was hot in 88, and that was in 87 and 88, and that was Faster Pussycat and LA Guns. And we did, Jungle and It's So Easy, because that was new-ish in what was happening out there. It wasn't Dokken or Motley. It was those bands.
Yeah.
And so in March of 88, somebody came down and signed us. So that means I was in the band 6 months.
Wow.
So we didn't even know. We hadn't even been into proper studio. We hadn't really recorded ourselves yet.
Dude, that's pretty rad. I like that.
They threw us in there with Max Norman, and we're like, holy shit, the guy that produced Crazy Train is going to make a record with us? Well,
right.
Max, you just make us sound good. So we just let him do what he does.
Right on.
But I swear did you guys tour through Texas?
Yeah.
What year? Would it have been late that year, 89 or 90?
89 or 90, yeah.
Did you play the Back Room? Do you remember a club called the Back Room? Do you remember much?
I don't remember much. I remember that we had a tour bus, and we go, what band do we hate the most, but would get the most girls?
I love this.
So we put Bon Jovi on the front of our bus.
Yeah.
On that little thing.
Yeah.
And girls were just flashing us all over the place, then they'd be so disappointed when they'd see us walking off the bus.
Yeah.
They're so dirty.
The marquee on those buses, the marquee would usually have a couple of different names, and we had one that said Rat.
Okay.
So we were Rat for about a month.
Excellent.
2 months.
That
we
is
were
so
Rat.
awesome.
Yeah. And then we had another one that said Prison Bus.
That's awesome.
That's when you wanted to scare people away.
That is funny.
We would go through those checkpoints, like when you're coming out of Texas, going to LA, you go through in El Paso, you go through that border patrol kind of, and they got drug dogs and shit. We put it on Prison Bus, just wave us on through.
Wow. No shit.
Waved us on through. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Wow.
But I swear I saw you guys at the Back Room, because I saw bands like the Throbs. I saw the Throbs at the Back Room.
Yeah.
Surely you guys have some of the same booking agent shit going.
I'm sure we were. Yeah, that.
I think I saw you guys one time in Texas, and I think I saw you in California somewhere. Yeah. But to answer Dave's questions, I don't really think that you and I know each other that well.
No. But I have been enjoying your guys' podcast that you're doing. It's been really cool. I saw the one with Chris Gates, and I just loved it. And you guys have a great thing going. I really enjoy it.
Me and Dave, I guess Dave's kind of cool. No, we really, Dave's a great guy, and you know that, and everybody who meets Dave that's not even from here, they just know Dave because he's a hardcore rock and roll fan.
Yeah.
But once they meet him and his family and everything, Dave's good people. So yeah. And we've known each other for so long. It's like the idea of the show was a no-brainer when Jared, our producer, who is my co-songwriter in Broken Teeth, dude, it's just a no fucking brainer.
Yeah.
So when we can get together,
we're lucky enough to have guys like Bryan here on speed dial and Chris Gates and stuff like that. And so we've been very lucky with the guests, because
you guys make it easy for us to kind of get in your head, because you're already one of us, and you kind of let us talk to you for real, and not just like, what's your favorite food?
Right.
I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
So Jason brought up the word trashy earlier, and I wanted to expand on that a little bit, because one of the things I like about the Hangmen is there's a very seedy quality to the music, and whether it's seedy as in a very dark, scary place, or in a beautifully sort of shattered place, there's no doubt that there's a certain street grit that goes into, especially the lyrics. So I'm wondering, you got sober 25 years ago. How did that impact your lyric writing? Because I feel like when you're living the life, some of those lyrics might come easier because it's part of your everyday experience. And when you're removed from it some, 25 years or whatever, how do you still find that place and that inspiration that seems to have come from a place that's no longer part of your everyday life? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But it really is still part of my life, not the drug use, not the alcoholism, not the alcohol itself, but I'm still got this brain that I have to somehow, I can go to those places without doing any of those things that I used to do,
that's good.
I could feel it, and it's not a place that I want to live in, but I think a lot of people, whether they did drugs or not, we're still humans, and we have the human condition that is melancholy at times and sad or angry, these kind of things. Or let's fight.
Sure.
Yeah. All that stuff is still there.
I think that it's a mysterious question by way of, well, the way that I'm understanding what Dave is asking you, as well as the way that you're answering by way of, I love what you just said about it, but I put it to, and I'm thinking about your music. And just like Dave is, I'm thinking about your music, and you are too, when you answered the way that you are. Your sensitivities are still there, even though you're not fucked up. You're still you said it best with the human condition. You can only control that so much, and then you want to. If you're a creative person, you're going to get that out. That's going to come out. It's unhealthy to not let that out. The people who don't have a release at all, they're not a writer or a painter or a creator, or they're not a teacher or you got to let that stuff out and share it in a way that's somewhat proper. Can't run naked down the street anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not that your desires to do that are probably less now too in the past 25 years. So where I'm going with this, and I'm talking about Hangmen music, is hopefully you'll understand this, and maybe you can disagree if you want. I call it this, and I talk about this. I describe music this way that sounds kind of like the Hangmen, lonesome cowboy. You're on the road, you're sad, you miss your family, you're angry, you're drinking, you're by yourself, you're with people you don't want to be around. Lonesome cowboy kind of just sounds like a style of music to me, and I feel like it fits some of what you're doing with the Hangmen. You understand that? Makes sense?
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all.
I've always been, if someone, I feel like there's a piece of me that's always been attracted to, I don't want to say danger, but that's the word that comes to mind first. And some of it is like this. It never fails. If I'm in a car driving through a big city, not a city that I live in, but say I'm on a road trip and I happen to drive through downtown Houston, or, I visited Los Angeles once and, or a couple times actually. And on the drive back from the airport, we went through some of the sketchy neighborhoods, and I'm just fascinated by that stuff, man. But I'll tell you right now, there's no way I'd want to live there. But there's something about it that intrigues me. And that's kind of what I was asking you, Bryan, I think is, do you never really break away from that intrigue, even though it's something you don't necessarily live day to day, but there's a certain appeal to that darkness that never really goes away?
Yeah, there's an appeal, and I don't know why I have that appeal, but a lot of people do.
I think it's natural.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And, there's guys at, I'm bringing up Mark Lanigan, who just passed away.
Yeah,
and he was just genius in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, you know, but he was always so fucking dark, you know. But I you know, that guy is dark.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, we have some of that in our music, but it's not like as hardcore as Mark's was. But I don't know where I'm going with that. I just wanted to kind of to acknowledge him because I never met him, but a lot of my friends knew him, and I just always admired him. I thought he was like, you know, pretty courageous, you know, doing what he does.
The fearless writer. Not
absolutely.
afraid to write any kind of
just like ooh, you know, and it was so honest that, you know, you couldn't help but feel you knew he wasn't bullshitting.
Yeah.
So
right. Yeah.
So
tell me about working with Mike Ness from Social Distortion. He produced your In the City album, and I'm curious to know because I don't know Mike personally. I don't really even know you personally. We've connected here and there, but I feel like you and Mike, you strike me as kindred spirits in a lot of ways. Is that what kind of brought you guys together to work together, or did you find something? Did you learn that after, or am I off the mark?
I think you're pretty much there, Dave. It was Johnny Two Bags, the guitar player, was in a band called the Cadillac Tramps, and the Hangmen used to play a lot with the Cadillac Tramps. And Johnny continued to be a Hangmen fan after he joined Social Distortion, and was always telling Mike, you know, we got to have the Hangmen, you know, on a show. We got to have. So one time, you know, Mike said, okay, you know, and we played a show with them, and then we kind of toured with them for about 10 years on and off, you know. And Mike said, you know, whenever you guys are ready to do something, I'd like to produce it. And we weren't really ready to do a record, but we had enough songs to do like an EP, like In the City, almost an album, 7 songs. And I loved working with Mike because he's a songwriter, and, you know, we have similar sensibilities, I believe. You know, he's very simple songwriter, and I don't know, it just worked out good. You know, I really liked it. And I know that he got who we were because we'd played so many shows together, and he goes, I just love your groove, man. I love your groove. You know, so he knew that we were a band that had a groove, had this swing to it.
Yeah.
A certain swing. And I love that he recognized that, you know, and was flattered that he wanted to do anything with us. And
that sounds like a good match on paper. I'm just glad that it ended well, and it was a good match in the studio kind of thing too.
Yeah. I'd love to work with Mike again if it ever came my way.
Awesome.
You know,
what's your purely selfish question on my part here, but what's your connection to Tame Me Down? I know he's a big Hangmen fan.
Tammy was a very good friend of this girl who was kind of living kind of not in our apartment. I lived in this crazy apartment building with assorted horse heads, you know, circle jerk people, chili pepper guys, you know. I couldn't have landed in a better spot ever, you know.
Wow.
And I just came fresh off the bus from my VW bus from Boise, you know, into this world, you know. I just felt like the luckiest kid ever, you know. But Tammy was friends with this goth girl that was kind of living with us called Wendy Pyro. And and she goes, "Oh, my friends, they got a band." This was a couple of years after the Hangmen had been going, and so we went down to see them practice, and it was Faster Pussycat, like one of their first rehearsals.
Wow.
And I kind of met Tammy through her, and I can't say we ever really hung out together, but we've always said hello to each other and whatnot. So
yeah, I see him wear your t-shirts quite often.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you, Tammy.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
He's fairly recently sober as well.
Wow, good for him, man.
Yeah.
That's rad.
I just did the Monsters of Rock cruise, and I saw him day one, and then I saw him play, and after the show, I got to talk to him again. I was like, his voice is stronger. I mean, it's like don't take this the wrong way, Tammy, if you're hearing this, but he's singing true notes and not just that, raspy air.
Sure.
Like Lemmy was air over pipes, and Tammy, and that's a style too, and that's cool.
Sure.
But Tammy was singing some real notes, and it was in songs that he normally didn't do that. I think House of Pain, he's singing, but he was singing more. I should have led with that. But then I saw him, he got invited he was on, I saw Alice Cooper was on the boat. The first night they play Schools Out, and all of a sudden Alice does this over to the side of the stage, and Tammy comes out and sings a fucking verse for Schools Out with Alice.
I bet that sounded great.
Yes, it was fun. Tammy's in a real good place right now.
And he looks great too. You see any recent pictures of him, and he looks fantastic. So.
Dude,
that's
awesome.
We as just rock and roll, I don't know, this sounds cheesy, but community, we needed Tammy to do that.
Yeah.
They're still a big draw, on the boat as well as when they tour. So I'm glad that he's stronger now. But that was a cool story.
Absolutely.
Wendy Pyro, you ever see Wendy Pyro around anymore? Disappeared?
Kind of. And then, she's on the Facebook.
Oh, right. Okay.
Thing,
People from the old days are always on the Facebook.
Yeah. But
I want to talk about this. This is Cactusville. This is my green copy of the latest full-length Hangmen record, Cactusville.
You got a cover for that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I do.
Oh, good.
Actually,
you got to take care of your records, man.
It's signed by Jimmy James.
I see that.
Love it.
I see all the loops.
It's awaiting Bryan's signature one day. And I also have Metallic IOU on vinyl, and I had Jimmy sign that. That one's framed and hanging out in the living room. You notice how I said living room, so everybody can see
Special places.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to talk
Dave.
about, oh man, Cactusville, what a great record. And I noticed that on the credits on side 2 are different from side 1, and I wanted to know if there's a different lineup on side 2, or if those are supplemental players on top of the Hangmen band.
It's supplemental and the latter, like you said.
Okay, so it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, we had Hunter, our old drummer, play on those on the slower, more countryer songs, side 2, and that's just the way it happened. We'd recorded a lot of those songs before George was in the band, and then we had the rock and roll, more of the rock and roll stuff George was in the band for, so he did those. But I wanted those particular slower countryer-ish songs to be treated in a way that I'd never done before, that I'd always wanted to, with like pianos and pedal steel and strings and stuff that I thought would help the songs. I think they deserved more than what we could give them as just the 4-piece, you know,
rock band treatment, right?
Yeah. So I tried to do that to the best of our ability with Bob Dylan's Nashville skyline in mind, and with, you know, a lot of the early country music that I liked had these, or like some Glenn Campbell stuff, and just had these strings meander, stuff you don't really notice unless you're listening, and then you hear it and they kind of make the song for you.
Yeah.
You know, so trying to do a little bit of that with side B of that record.
I'll be honest, it sounds like I need to hear that record. It's like
great.
I would
And
really
I'll
like
be
that
honest,
slower country vibe. I need to hear that shit.
And while we're all being honest, I'll tell you, when I got it at first, I was kind of thrown by some of the more twangy. It's definitely it does have all those elements you just said, Bryan, and it took me by surprise a little bit, and I'm not sure why, because the Hangmen have always had elements of that in their music. But I've never heard it consolidated to a side of a record where it's like, okay, this is going to continue for consecutive songs, you know,
making it obvious. Yeah, making it obvious. Yeah,
but
he's still
it.
there. He's just got to turn his stuff back on. Yeah.
Was it something I said?
No. I just think it just slipped. It's all good.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Back and looking good.
Yeah, I'm back.
I think it's a great idea to have, like, I'm just being silly here, a white meat and a dark meat, you know, a black and a white, or something that's kind of saying a certain something in one place and maybe something slightly different on another.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
It works. And when I look at the album, I find that, you know, my favorite songs are almost evenly split on the two sides. So that tells you all you need to know right there. You know, it's not like all my favorite songs are on the rock side.
Right.
It's like, I like these two songs over here and this song over here. And the whatever you did, I know it was done by design, and it works. And so is that something you would consider moving forward with your next Hangmen record, or is this something you just wanted to get out of your system, or no telling?
I think that element is always part of the Hangmen, the you know, the slower, more country-ish type stuff, and as well as the rock and roll, you know. So I don't think I'd split them up again like that. Yeah. To be honest with you, I was really, really wrestling with the idea of doing that.
Weird.
And I was just going, this might be a big mistake, you know. But I'm proud of the record, you know, and I'm glad we did it that way. So
I think it's great, man. It's a great record.
Thank you.
A great record. This far along into your journey, and your willingness to sort of experiment with your sound a little bit and do something like that and have it work is just like, I don't know, man. Whatever you're doing, you're doing it well.
In retrospect, that little bit of paranoia, like you were struggling with that idea of splitting up a rock side and a twangy side, if you will. Mm-hmm. I think that it's okay to have a little bit of fear, because those songs mean something to you, and you're singing your heart out. You're thinking about things, you know, when you're writing those.
I almost don't even hear it, to be honest. The only reason that it stands out to me as being quote unquote divided is because the credits on the back of the album point to the fact that a different group of players did side 2 versus side A. And then I listen with a different set of ears, and I go, okay, I can hear nuances now. But if you hadn't told me, because it's a Hangmen record and those elements have always been there, I would have just thought it's another, you know, cohesive Hangmen record.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
Well, it's I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we've lumped that many slow bummer songs together.
Slow bummer. It's a new genre.
I want to hear
Yeah.
I want to hear this record even more now because I like slow bummer songs.
Yeah. Hey man, nobody does slow bummer as good as this man right here.
I'm happy. I'm gonna look into getting that record. I was gonna say a second ago, you know, that what we're talking about specifically, until you said the last thing you said, Dave, like you wouldn't know, like if it were a CD or it's just a mix and it's just on random or whatever, you wouldn't really notice it. But the fact that it's on vinyl and that there is a split between, you know, the group of players, if you will, or, you know, side A, side B, you can only do that on vinyl, of course. So you've got this ritual that you're doing, that you're going into the slow bummer, you know, you're going into the rock and roll. It's like a choice. I don't know if I want to listen to side B again.
Now side B.
Yep.
As Tom Petty says, or whatever.
Right.
I love it. I think it works, and it's a great record. If people don't have it yet, it needs to be part of your collection. Cactusville. It's a really great record, and I like the fact that it was available on green vinyl because it looks really cool.
Thanks.
So you got this album out. You did a tour recently. It might be maybe going on a year ago now, maybe more. You went overseas. And you know me, I've been hounding you on Facebook for a Texas tour for probably about a year now. And I know COVID got in the way. I've only had the opportunity to see you guys once, and Jason was there. It was during South by Southwest. You guys played on the back patio of Casino Camino.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Street Walking Cheetahs.
The Hangmen, Street Walking Cheetahs.
That's fucking right.
And Broken Teeth.
Thank you
and
for
Sons of Broken Teeth.
Sons of Hercules
not
were on
Broken
the
Teeth.
Not Broken Teeth, but Jason guested, and Jason came up with the Cheetahs, and they did an Iron Maiden song, and then they did a Broken Teeth song, and that was the only chance that I'd ever had to see the Hangmen. But at the time, I wasn't aware of your music, so I didn't know who you were, and I was friends with the other two bands. So by the time they got done playing, I was more concerned with mingling with my friends. And I'm sure I saw a few of your songs and paid attention a little bit, but I wasn't as fully invested in the band. And I've been kicking myself ever since because I've become a really big fan since that time, and I haven't had the opportunity to see you again. And that was like 20 years ago or something. So my question, when are we going to see you in Texas, man?
Hopefully soon-ish. You know, that's the best answer I can give because, you know, I live in Montana now. That makes things a little more difficult. We got to plan things ahead. And with COVID, we haven't been able to plan ahead very well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or plan at all. I mean, that European thing, we snuck in under the wire and got out under the wire, you know? That was a month over there. And that was in October. It hasn't been a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was just in October, you know, October to September, I think. Or
of 21? Of 21?
Yeah.
I still call that fairly recent.
Yeah. For in Hangmen years, that's like yesterday. You know. So
yeah, I remember
relate
thinking,
to that too.
I remember seeing you were going overseas, and I knew Junkyard was planning some dates, and I was like, is Jimmy James going to get back in time to do the Junkyard run? Because one of those dates came through Austin, and Jason's band Broken Teeth was playing.
Oh, okay.
But you obviously did, and that
was early December.
Yeah, that was early December.
Second week of December.
But I knew you didn't have an answer to my question. I guess what I'm saying is I can't wait for you to get to Texas because
us too. We would, you know, and Angelique, our bass player, she's from Denton. You know, she might be moving back there, you know, to Texas, and you know, with our connection with you know, Junkyard and those guys, and you know, we've always kind of had an affinity for Texas too.
Yeah.
You know, had this love of Texas and all things Texas.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's cool. So,
well, I hope that COVID and other logistics allow for it, because I'm long overdue for a Hangmen show, and it'd be great to finally meet you in person one day.
Well, I think that all things Hangmen lend themselves to, in a nutshell, dirty rock and roll. So people in Texas love dirty rock and roll. So I'm sure that the connection you have with Texas is real and will continue to be real. So
yeah, for sure. Well, Bryan, man, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I've wanted you on the show for a long time. I want to see you play live again as soon as possible. I appreciate all your music, all your records, everything that you do. Please keep cranking out the records. I think I have them all at this point.
cool.
And I love them. So
I think
Dave,
I'm on my way over to your house, and if I say, "Hey, Dave, what's that over there?" and then some of your Hangmen records disappear, it was me.
you're going to have to leave a down payment, dude.
Right on. Well, I'm heading to LA in a couple of weeks to record.
Awesome.
To work and record and play one show at the Zebulon with a guy named Chris D, and he's in a band called the Divine Horsemen. And Chris D is an amazing singer, writer, wailer from the beginnings of the punk rock scene. He actually produced Fire of Love, the Gun Club record that changed my life, you know, and he's amazing. So we're going to do this one show and record and, you know, make my short trip as fruitful as possible.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So that's what we're doing now.
Short pilgrimage. Man. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, good luck on that.
Yeah,
and
safe
thank you.
To you.
Yeah.
I was real nervous about doing this, to be honest with you, because I unfortunately I did a little homework and was starting to watch your podcast, and I'm going, oh, there we go.
That's okay.
And then I was going like, look at all these great people they've got on here. Why the hell they want to talk to me? You know. So,
well, you know what? To be straight with you,
for me, man.
You're like we feel the same way. Why are these people wanting to talk to us? It's like, do they realize they're talking to Beavis and Butthead, and it's Wayne's World. You guys.
You guys made it great. Man. So I appreciate it. Cool.
Bryan, thank you so much. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, along with our very special guest today, Bryan Small from the Hangmen, on this episode of the Talk Louder podcast.